Hey, you cool cats, you found the original One Mound channel, and I'm glad you're here because it's springtime and it's above freezing and the snow is melting, and that means I get to put on my outside hat. That makes me happy. Listen, I was watching Mama Bear's Homestead and More, and I got a real talk from Papa Bear. And real quick, he talked about how the Good Shepherd comes in through the gate, and anybody jumping the fence, well, they're there to lie, steal, and destroy. So it got me thinking. In a lot of my videos, I tell you about something that's important to me, growing the Hopi blue corn, the Three Sisters garden, and I kind of lightly touch on the being prepared for your family kind of prepper stuff. And I slip it in there because I don't want you guys thinking, oh, he's a prepper, bunkers and guns and stuff, and then you swipe away because the stereotype for people that are preppers, well, it doesn't necessarily inspire a lot of happiness. So I try to slip a little bit of preparedness into the videos. Is that me jumping the fence, guys? Maybe I need to come right through the front gate and tell you, being prepared for your family, being prepared for my family is as important to me as the fun that I have in the garden. And I don't want to try to slip it in this video. I want to come right out and I want to talk to you real quick about what I do to be prepared for my family. And I'm going to do that while showing you the books that I read. So I'll show you the books. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit about it as it glides by the screen. But basically, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes and tell you what I've done to be better prepared for my family. And I really hope you'll stick by, hear me out, and not swipe away because you think maybe I'm a crazy bunker building baddie, because I'm not.
All right. First of all, we're all already preppers anyway. Anybody that keeps a blanket in their trunk or a flashlight on top of their bookshelf just in case, I mean, that is a level of preparation, right? So when you think about prepper, you picture somebody at the complete other end of the spectrum. They're preparing for everything under the sun. They try to buy as much stuff to be prepared for any possible scenario. There's a whole level of prepping that lives right in the middle there. That doesn't have to be only having a flashlight or having a bunker built under your garage. All right, don't want to forget about the books here. Starting on the left, I love this book, but it didn't make me any better at chess. How to Win at Chess. Right next to it, When All Hell Breaks Loose by Cody Lundin. This guy was on dual survival with the Navy SEAL, and he ran around in his socks all the time, made everybody crazy. Man, it's cold outside. Put your shoes on. But seriously, it's a great book. And he taught me the phrase in this book, don't just do something, stand there. And how when disaster strikes, people feel like they have to do something, and they run around like chickens with their head cut off. And I don't know, something about that really stuck with me. Don't just do something, stand there. The story of the guy that made the first encyclopedia, which was a big deal before the internet. So this dude was so short, he had to carry a ladder around with him to help him jump on his horse. So here he is. He's like this big shot, created the encyclopedia, but he was like 2 foot tall. Next to that is a box set by a man named Eric Sloan, who used to write about old tools and how they were used in old farms. And it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a reference. But he did publish a diary or a journal from this boy that lived on a pioneer farm before electricity. And it documents, you can read the journal entry when this kid got a window in his bedroom. Before this, I guess his bedroom didn't have a window. And so he just slept in the dark. And he describes how he used to sit there and just stare at the moonlight through the window and how it was so magical. And it's powerful to me because here we've got all of this abundance and we live these wonderful existences, and this kid was made happy by a window. So maybe when it all falls apart, maybe there's happiness for us in the shape of a window or something. Hiking Wisconsin. I like to hike in Wisconsin. What I love about you, my wife loves me. Wisconsin farms and farmers markets. I like to eat good food that isn't full of pesticides. And Robert Frost, the poet. Now, I don't read a lot of poetry, but this book is like therapy for me. I used to have a lot of nervous anxiety about potential collapse of society or something, which I was sure was going to happen any minute now. But this guy created these wonderful poems about life before electricity, and you come to realize that there is life without electricity, and there is life without all these modern systems. And so when you stumble into the world of preparedness, maybe you're like me and you get a bit anxious and you realize exactly what kind of a razor's edge we are standing on. But even if we fall as a society, there's still poetry. There's still animals to feed and fields to walk and rivers to sit by. Foraging Wild Edible Plants of North America. I like this one because it's got a bunch of recipes in it. So many of the foraging books don't really tell you how to use what you forage, or at least not in recipe format, but this one does. So that's how it found itself on my window. Pioneer Women. These ladies were tough, and I mean all the way tough. Probably not as tough as today's ladies, but pretty darn close. There's a lot of journal entries and stuff in here, but one particular caught my attention. This lady wanted to be a teacher, and well, you know, guys of the time, they didn't want women to be able to do anything except for keep the house clean. But this woman becomes a teacher, and she decides she wants to teach geography. And of course, some guy says, oh, we don't need to be teaching, you know, kids or girls about geography. And she says, well, okay, well, how about instead of teaching them geography, I teach them a song about the states and capitals? And he says, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So she taught him geography anyway, by teaching them a song with the states and the capitals in it. Good Seeds. I'll tell you what, that is a good book. And the author wrote another book too, and that one's just as good. Now, there was an awful lot that I took out of both of those books, but what jumps to mind right now is he said, if everything falls apart and you think you're going to run out and be a hunter-gatherer, he said, be prepared to have to kill a deer for your family like every other day. There is not anywhere near as much meat on a deer as you think there is. He said the hunter-gatherers back in the day really sustained themselves on bear or elk or bison. Preserving food without freezing or canning. This one's due back at the library, and I'm having a hard time giving them their book back. I think I'd just like to keep it. This book explores different ways to preserve your food that don't require electricity or even jars. Sometimes as easy as dumping your potatoes in a hole in the ground and burying them under a whole bunch of straw. It's a really good educational book. All right, back to prepping. It's not very hard. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure you can boil water, because if the power goes out, there's no water coming through your faucet. You're going to need to collect water from rivers or lakes, and that could have bacteria in it and get you sick, and you don't want to go through some disaster scenario with diarrhea. So make sure that you have the ability and knowledge to boil water before you drink it, which sounds easy, but I encourage you to try it. Go out and figure out how to filter some water and then boil it, and ask yourself if you want to drink that. And keep in mind there's no electricity or natural gas. You got to boil this water using open flame or some other means, I don't know. So if you're getting started in prepping, put up a bunch of water, like 50 or 75 or 100 gallons. My family drinks bottled water. We buy them in cases from Walmart. So I have a ton of cases of bottled water. As far as food goes, I only prep what I eat. So my family eats spaghetti once a week. So I keep 52 jars of spaghetti sauce in the pantry and 104 pounds of spaghetti in the pantry, so that once a week we have our spaghetti. Then when I go shopping, we replenish to the back of the row there. This way I've always got 52 meals worth of spaghetti and sauce and another 52 meals worth of pasta, and nothing ever goes bad. It just sits there. We eat soup about once a week, so I keep a whole bunch of cans of soup down there. We have our soup when I go grocery shopping. I restock it at the back, so we're always rotating FIFO, first in, first out. Same with tuna fish. We eat tuna fish sandwiches sometimes, so I got a bunch of tuna fish down there. When we eat some, I replenish it, put it at the back. Easy and free, because we're only buying things that we're going to eat anyway. Absolutely nothing gets wasted. No reason not to be doing this. I think up next was the Forager's Harvest Edible Wild Plants by the GOAT, Samuel Thayer, who happens to be from my home state of Wisconsin. Look, if you're looking for a field reference guide, look no further than anything that Samuel Thayer has ever published. He is, like I said, the GOAT. The Wisconsin farm they built, I got this one because it was written by somebody local to my community, and I'm trying to support my community. But one thing that jumped out at me is the gentleman who wrote this book is talking about the character of the people that are working, growing the food. and how they are such wonderful people, maybe because they work with the food and with the land. And I think that's great, because if we have some kind of crazy collapse, we're all going to be working with the food and with the land. And wouldn't it be wonderful to assume that someday we are all going to be wonderful people again? George Washington's Mount Vernon. My boy took the high school trip to Washington, D.C., and he knows I'm kind of into this stuff, so he brought me back this souvenir from Mount Vernon. Pretty awesome, if you ask me. Also, George Washington, greatest president that ever presidented. He didn't have to be president. He could have been king. They said, "Do you want to be king?" And he said, "No, I'll just be president." Well, I'll just leave it at that. Next book, The Journals of Lewis and Clark. You might not be able to see it. It's kind of tucked far back there. This is a book about Lewis and Clark and the journals they kept as they made their way from one ocean to the next. And what I remember most about this book is they said that they saw herds of squirrels crossing the river that they were floating down. Like thousands of squirrels moving together as one herd. And of course, squirrels don't do that anymore. But we have no reason to suspect that Lewis and Clark would lie in their journals. So a few hundred years ago, folks, squirrels moved in herds. And not only that, but they jumped their happy selves in the river and swam across. Lewis and Clark had a Newfoundland dog with them that would swim in the river and go and catch these squirrels and bring them back for lunch. Heck of an adventure. Back to prepping real fast. We've got fire so we can boil water. We've prepped food. Hopefully you can prep 3 months worth of food. Why 3 months? Because that's how long winter is. And you could probably forage some calories in the spring, summer, and fall. But you definitely need at least 3 months worth of food in your pantry at all times. I'd say shoot for 6, but that's a tall order. And if you're still here listening to this, congratulations. You've listened to me ramble longer than anybody in history. I'm going to wrap it up like this. If something does happen, you need to make that last run to the grocery store. Now you're not buying soup. You're not buying spaghetti. You're just buying flour and salt and sugar and honey and the absolute basics that your great-grandma cooked with, because flour has like 16,000 calories in a 10-pound bag. Imagine if you got 100 pounds of flour. That's a lot of calories. Now you can add months of food supply to your pantry for just pennies when you're buying flour. And you could turn that flour into bread with just water and salt. And you don't even really need the salt. It just makes it taste good. Flour and water, folks. You probably saw my Bible there on the windowsill. I believe that that is the Word of God. Next to that, tree crops, a permanent agriculture. Listen, folks, if you have to forage for survival, I don't mean because you like to eat healthy food that tastes good. I mean forage for survival. Nothing comes even close to tree nuts. Acorns are edible. Hickory nuts are delicious. Walnuts are messy, but man, they're good for you. And it's the only place you're going to get protein in the plant world. If something goes crazy, if our food system breaks, pray that it happens early in the fall and that you can run your happy self to the woods and collect thousands and thousands of tree nuts before everybody else figures it out and tries to do the same thing. Tree nuts will save your family. Now, of course, if you're not new to my channel, you know I am all about saving seeds. And to be prepared for your family, you need to be prepared to plant a garden if everything falls apart. And the only garden you really need to be concerned with is the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash. They are easy to grow. They take care of themselves. In fact, they take care of each other, and they all store well over the winter. The Native Americans perfected it over thousands of years, and if you think you could do it better, you're probably kidding yourself. I'm about out of time, and I'm on my way to pick my kids up from school, but first thing in the spring, you can forage on wild leeks. They grow in the forest, they look like grass, and they grow abundantly. After that, nettles, stinging nettle. Wear your gloves, but it's a nutritional powerhouse. And wild garlic or garlic mustard. That stuff is also a nutritional powerhouse, and it's an invasive. Nobody cares if you eat it. Learn your goosefoot. Learn your wild amaranth. I treat this stuff like a hobby. It's a lot of fun. Maybe you do puzzles. Maybe you learn how to not die. Your choice.